Today, I'm going to be showing you guys the full interview with Michael Wyckoff, the composer behind Stress Level Zero and their VR games. He's going to be talking about his behind-the-scenes content at Stress Level Zero, his thoughts and feelings behind creating music for both Bone games, as well as even some future ideas and prepositions for B-side. Now, enough of this. I'm going to start off with my first question being, how did you decide where to begin when creating music for the Bone games, and what thoughts and feelings did you think were necessary? Take it away, Michael.
Usually with Boneworks, it started with Alex. So Alex will communicate with me hey, can you go check out this area? We just added it to the build, and then either let me kind of do what I think is right, or maybe he'll have a reference for something that he kind of wants it to be like, or literally just a emotional information that he'll give. And so based on that, if I have carte blanche to do what I want, then it's kind of up to me and kind of figuring out, okay, where's the player, where have they been, where are they going, and what's going on. As examples, the museum, he kind of wanted to do something that reminded him of Willy Wonka, where they go into candy factory, and it's this really whimsical moment. So that's kind of a cool fusion of okay, he wants it to be like pure imagination, because that's a very specific feeling, and I feel a lot of the feeling, if you break it down, it's a few different things, right? It's the vocal performance, but I'm not sure, other than Pick It Up, if vocals are gonna fit in this game out of nowhere. And I know we tried some of that in Bone Lab, and I some of it I liked, some of it I didn't like, but I feel more instrumental definitely fits the tone, but still trying to get that feeling. And so it's okay, well, it's the vocal performance from Gene Wilder, it's the the orchestration, which is super lush, but again, we're not doing the synth stuff, and then the underlying composition. And so if those are your only three avenues to go off, and you have to make it fit within our universe, then obviously to me the thing to take inspiration from was the underlying composition. And so that's why and I've made it no secret that the chord progression for the museum is the same chord progression as Pure Imagination, but it's my melody, and Pure Imagination is in 4/4, whereas the museum's in 6/8. I think a good way to take inspiration from stuff is it's figuring out parts of the DNA, and then what aspect of that DNA can we draw from into our thing, and then doing it with the accoutrement of our project. Other stuff Stranger Things was the big inspiration on Boneworks. I feel also Bernard Herrmann and all the old noir Hitchcock films was a really big inspiration. And so as I'm going through the levels, it's trying to take those two kernels of ideas of okay, really futuristic synthy stuff, but also brooding, dark, moody, noir, compositional stuff, and then trying to fuse them, and in Tower, in the little area where all you have the little rave thing, and House of Monagon, So that's very obviously kind of inspired by John Wick, and so thinking about okay, the player comes in here and they've just been in this whole thing to get here, and it's been this one kind of mood, and then we're just gonna completely throw it out the window and go here and do this thing from a completely other thing, and again but trying to make the music still fit within what we've been doing. So it's not literally a La Castlevania or Gesaffelstein track. It still has some of the DNA of the music, but in this style. Even for example with Little Tuscany, it's not a traditional Italian folk song. It's if a traditional Italian folk song was played on the synths of everything that came before it. Circle back to your question, trying to figure out each level, what is the mood, what is the player doing, what's the environment. And then for this, because it's different if it would be like the way John Williams does stuff, where it's all orchestral, and then that's your palette. And so this was okay, so these types of synths are the palette, for the most part, and then how do we integrate the feeling of the environment and what the player's doing with DNA of everything. And the DNA is arbitrary, but that was like a really like interesting learning experience between Boneworks and BoneLab, and now I've like cemented that in my head, like how significant even minor changes in the process affect the outcome. Yeah, the most minor of changes, because I feel like a lot of people liked BoneLab, but I feel like musically everyone like really resonated, especially with like Boneworks, and it's like, okay, but if I feel like BoneLab is musically better and production wise better, then what is it? And I think one of the things is the consistency of the tone, and I think that was literally a big part of that was literally because I only used, as in terms of like outboard synths, like the mini log, whereas I guess because of the success of Boneworks, I had some money to buy more synths, and so it was like, okay, here's this synth and this synth and this synth, and so we have all these synths. And whereas in Boneworks there was no money, and so it was like literally just this one little guy, and he's doing everything.
This is like the cheapest, like every like 17-year-old EDM producer on planet Earth is using this. Like,
Yo.
It's like it's like $200. It's not good.
Yeah.
Quote, not good. But it synth into that makes Boneworks.
And so I think maybe there's something to be said about that the constraint of just the very limited sound source in creating the sound. Like the Beach Boys recorded everything on like this one tape machine. I forget what I think it's like an Ampex something, but it's like the first model of that Ampex in like the 60s. And then if you like listen to like the way like their drums kind of smear, it's like a really weird outcome. And then if you listen to things from even a few years later with like new tape machines, they don't like smear in the same way. And so even if you have like the same guys in the same room at the same place recording the same song, but you change one piece of the gear, it's not better or worse, but it is different. If you listen to like the original recording of the Star Wars theme, and then you listen to like other recordings from like the later movies, there was something about that first recording and the way it happened. And I experienced that. It's super, super different, and I think that is one of the reasons why people seem to resonate with it. Like the dynamic at stress level 0 is such a unbelievably cool dynamic. I don't feel afraid that I'm gonna get fired if I like make a creative decision and it doesn't work and then we decide to not go with it. In Hollywood, you do a pass and then they don't like it, they fire you, you get somebody else. Sometimes they don't ask you to rewrite it or give you notes. They're just like, oh, he doesn't know what he's doing, it's not working. And I feel like that's one of the reasons why things are, from my opinion, kind of stale often, is because nobody's taking risks. If you're trying to put food on the table for yourself or your family, it's hard to take risks when you don't feel like you're in a safe environment to creatively explore and try new things. And I think that is one of the things that is helping us. Is Brandon and Alex are both creative people as well, they get it, and Alex was an animator and Brandon was a filmmaker, so I'm not afraid to take risks, whereas in other stuff, I maybe just do exactly what they say and I'm not putting my own personality into it. And that was a big part of Boneworks, was like really the first time that I really put my personality into something that I had done versus literally just doing exactly what they asked and very surface level stuff. Even stress level 0 stuff like Hover Junkers and Duck Season, I feel like had a lot less of my own. I love them, but I feel like even those, I feel like it took some time to build the rapport within our company for that trust to exist. So I would say that's the big factor, is just the trust versus in other creative situations I haven't really had that trust or the power to explore. Yeah. I just played it myself, and I did get some like feedback from like some friends. I would just like put it on and then play through, and then like I guess like if I'm because I spent hours and hours and hours and hours and hours writing the music, so I'm not gonna ignore it, you know. I'm usually like in there singing it as it's happening, you know. But if I'm playing through the thing and I'm having a good time, and I can imagine somebody else would kind of not pay attention to the music or be singing it, like to me it's either you're like singing it or you don't notice it. I really like, yeah, being as early in the game development process as possible for a lot of reasons, but I think the biggest reason, and for that purpose of immersion, is something that, and it's another thing that's like, I guess, unique to the dynamic in Stress Level 0 because of our friendship and just the way we are as people and the way we have things set up, is if I am early and I really love this project and I really care about it, and I'm being compensated in a way that's fair, where I feel like this is also my baby and not just brought onto this thing and then I'm like you know, never involved with it again, and I'm paid very unfairly. So if I do understand, if I'm being compensated fairly, if I have, you know, it's a friendship and I know these are my guys and we're trying to make the best thing possible, then, and this is finally circling back, then I can, for example, make multiple songs for a level, and then we can decide like what's the best one. Like for example in Bone Lab, like that is, I know I said, and it's still true, that is why I released them, that the extra songs in Bone Lab were like for Lava Gang to use for mods and stuff, and that is the reason why I released them. But it's not necessarily in all the cases the reason why I even made them in the first place. And often the reason why I made them in the first place was as like, you know, different ways of going about a level. So like with, you know, like Monogon Motorway, Take a Ride, obviously. Versus, you know, Turn Around.
If you would turn around, feel my heart racing faster now, all the mood is falling into you.
Like those are like two energies that would contribute to the level, and so if you start early enough and this is something you really care about and you're being compensated in a way where you want to give it your all, then it makes sense to be like, okay, like let's do it this way, and then let's do it this way, and then let's test them and let's see which one we're having more fun with. And that has nothing to do with like the quality of the composition or the song. It's just more like what is the vibe. And so like I think that's like a really good example of that, you know, is Monogon Motorway. And had I not had the time, let's say I just wrote Take a Ride as the first song, then we wouldn't, it would be a completely different level. I don't know if any were cut. I think it mainly was, here's a way to do it and here's another way to do it. The great journey versus the grand journey, there's like an obvious one there, because there's not like objective truth, right? There's just what the end result is and what we decide on, and what the end result is and what you decide on ends up being the thing. And so like we're talking about like effectiveness, sometimes some things are more effective than others. Like for example, like let's take Star Wars, right? So like let's say if you were to ask like anybody nowadays, like let's say Star Wars never existed and you were to ask anybody, any director, any composer now in Hollywood, I guarantee you 99% of the time the outcome would be a soundtrack that's like synthesizer based, right? Because you're like sci-fi movie, you're like it's in space, and everybody goes to synthesizers, right? And so like to do a symphonic neo-romantic 1890s score, it's a choice, right? But it's not the obvious choice. And so I think that's part of the creative process, is whatever the choice is figuring out what is the most effective choice in your subjective opinion for the thing. And so like, you know, often like I won't make two things, you know, sometimes it'll just be the thing. Like there wasn't two Don't Fence Me Ins, it was just Don't Fence Me In. But I think if I'm early enough in the process, like I can do something, and then like let's say I'm like, this is really great, but as I'm like going on my walks or I'm going for a drive and I'm like thinking about this thing, you know, it's like, oh, maybe we could try it in this other way, and then sometimes we try it. Like sometimes it's the first one and then sometimes it's the second one, you know? But I guess what I'm saying is like, I don't feel like my time is wasted in trying
a second one and then it being a failure versus our dynamic wasn't the way it is. And I think, in the case of modding on Motorway, turnaround was the first one. So, we had originally thought like, a Eurobeat track was a good idea, and then I loved it, and I was like, okay, well, like maybe let me just see what it's like, and then we all agreed, no, this is like so high energy, that's the way. But in the Great Journey, the Grand Journey was the opposite, where the first time, was not the one that we decided on. Like, we did it away, and then it was like, okay, maybe that's not hitting in the way that we want, and then tried it a different way. So sometimes it's the first, sometimes it's the second. I guess that's like as opposed to like, how it would normally be, where if you're not being compensated in a way where it makes sense to like literally do a finished song, then you're just kind of doing like little demos and that are unfinished and maybe like a minute long, and then you're showing it to them, and then they're like, no, just completely rewrite it. In a case like Bone Lab, where it's like, okay, well, if I could put out the demos that we don't decide on for Lava Gang to use, then why not just do the whole song? Because that's like I said, that the feeling like I'm a member of the team and having the time like you're talking about is the reason for that. Because Turnaround took me 2 months, right? Like it literally took me 2 months to make that song. Some of these songs, take an hour. Yeah. So some of these songs take an hour, but Turnaround took 2 months. So if you're asking me, and I gotta pay rent, and I gotta eat, and I want to be a dad, so I gotta, have dad money. If you're asking me to work on something for 2 months for $500, like I can't do that. Sometimes I have the level, and then sometimes I just have a screenshot, and then sometimes I just have artwork. And so I basically just had, for that moment, when I was writing that, I just had artwork of that, like that exact shot that you're talking about with the rain coming down.
Yeah.
And the tower and the lightning. I would love to say that, like, in terms of the timing that you're talking about, because I know the timing you're talking about, I would love to take credit and say I'm like a genius, but really that is like the mood of it I was based on the artwork, but the timing is serendipity. Like like that's like just an act of God. And I know exactly what you're talking about, because even myself, when I like was playing it, I was like, whoa. Like this is like there's a few times in our game, like another one is in Bone Lab where the hand where like
yeah.
That's like another one where like there's a few moments in our games where I'm like, this is no longer a video game, like this is cinema. Like this is like
definitely.
And the Jimmy picking you up is one of those moments. That moment with the rain coming down is like another one, and I wish I could like take complete credit that we like timed it exactly. But we didn't. The mood, I was going for the mood, but like I wasn't timing it to where like 99% of people, they like walking away, where at the second they get up the stairs, like that was not on purpose, but I'm glad it happened. And I think that speaks to part of the creative process as well, where like some of the stuff's in your control and then some of the stuff's out of your control. And I'm a big believer in that. Like I'm a big believer, like me and Fam were talking earlier about like the process dictating the outcome, and like how in like Bone Lab versus Boneworks, like in Boneworks was literally just the mini log in terms of like outboard synthesizers, because we didn't have any money, and then like I was able to get like the OB6 and the Prophet 6, which each on their own have 500 sounds each, so that's like 1,000 new sounds, versus like the mini log in Boneworks where there's like only 100 sounds in the whole thing, and I was using like 20 of them.
Before Michael goes any further, I'd like to pause for a second just to say a disclaimer for the next part of this film. Michael talks about B-side and his prepositions and ideas for the music. Now, none of this is true or is guaranteed for the game, so take this with a pinch of salt.
I'm now so aware of that, where I'm like, oh my god, like I really like, and that's kind of like when we do B-side, like I'm really worried about that, because I'm like, do I literally just do Boneworks? Because I can do that, like I can literally just do Boneworks, or do I try to do Boneworks but slightly different, and then does that fuck it up? Boneworks doesn't happen if I'm not experimenting with a different process than I'm used to, and that exact process is what created the outcome. And so I'm like, oh, with B-side it's like, okay, like then do I experiment more, and then do I accidentally make this new cool thing that's just as good or better than Boneworks, or do I But if I don't and I fail, then does that negatively affect it for the fans who would be happy if I literally just did Boneworks again? And is that better or worse for the game? Is that better or worse for society? I don't know. Now that I have like stuff that is of higher quality, thinking like, okay, if I want to make it more cinematic, because I feel like if here's Boneworks and then Bone Lab, I feel like went more pop EDM. And so I'm thinking like, okay, we want to go back to cinematic, but do I go more cinematic? And then if I go more cinematic, that means doing stuff that like very few people do, which is like, you know, at Stress Level 0, we have like the warehouse. I could like blast the synths out into the warehouse and record them with like, you know, microphones, right? And it would be like the mini log again, the same sounds as Boneworks, but now instead of going DI, right, we're recording it in the warehouse. And then that is going to sound different, even though the only difference is like, you know, miking it in a real space versus it not being mic'd in a real space. And that's the level of like nuance I'm talking about, of like changing a decision where it's like, does that make people like it less? I don't know. Does that make people like it more? Is it more compelling? Is it less compelling? I don't know.
Are you currently working on B-side as a music?
No.
Not yet.
No, just ruminating on potential processes, but not actually writing music for it yet. And like thinking of themes, but not yet. Yeah. I've been thinking about this a lot, especially the last few years, and I feel like there's not an easy way to answer it, but and it's also my subjective opinion. So there's culture, and then within culture there's art as like a subset of culture, but like if you get rid of like art, then in my opinion, life is just survival, right? Because it's like, you know, you have to get food and water and not die, and that's survival, and that's the most important part of life, is survival, right? But as humans, we are capable of elevating our experience beyond that of just our fellow animal. And so to me, art is an elevation of the human experience, or an escape from the mundane. And so with that in mind, like every part of art is kind of just under that umbrella of trying to, you know, elevate people's experiences. And we can look at that with like architecture. As somebody from Los Angeles, where I'm just surrounded by soulless boxes and, you know, concrete and gray and ugly. To me, like going to London and seeing the architecture, or going to Prague, or going to Budapest, or going to wherever and seeing the architecture is so inspiring to me, and I feel my happiness level rises just from seeing the building. Or like another example, like, you know, you go to a restaurant and, you know, the food's really good, but then on top of that, like the ambiance is really great. Like maybe they have like a piano player playing and she's incredible, and, you know, maybe the lighting's really cool, right? So like all of these things are like elevating experience that I'm having. If it's, the most important thing is that it's effective. You don't want it to detract. But to me, once it's effective, then why not go above and beyond? And that's where things to me go into the memorable versus just the it exists and it was effective. And so I think like musically, like there are people who like do games and the soundtracks are kind of like just kind of soundscapes. And like to me, those are always very effective, but they're not very memorable, because one of the reasons to me is that they're not utilizing the ways in which music can really shine. If something's just a soundscape and it doesn't have a melody, I feel like melody only exists in music, right? I feel like melody is like the primary way for me of making things memorable. Boneworks obviously didn't have a lot of characters that were like, you know, recurring, so it's harder to do like a leitmotif, but you can do like the melody for the whole thing, and then you can kind of like sprinkle it around and do different like variations of it and stuff like that. One reason I think the Boneworks melody was so effective in that way is because like the architecture of it is very neutral, meaning like, you know, you can harmonize it with stuff that's like happy, you can harmonize it with stuff that's sad, you can harmonize it with stuff that's a little weird or whatever, and versus like if the melody was very implicative of a particular emotion, then, you know, it would maybe be harder to effectively reharmonize it in a way that was leaning away towards that emotion. Now you couldn't do it, but I feel like that melody is, you know, very like, I don't want to call it like neutral as if it lacks emotion, but like, you know, it's not so happy or so epic or so sad. So that's what I'm saying. So it's like I don't have to change the Boneworks melody to make it work in different scenarios. So melody for memorability, I think, is the number one thing. And then I think the second thing is just personality, and that's kind of where I was getting at with all the buildings and the other stuff, is like, I feel like so much stuff now is just having the personality just ripped out of it. And I think that's like one thing that was like really effective about the way that I decided to record Boneworks and BoneLab, where and I was like serious about it, is like I didn't quantize anything. I played everything in live, you know, on the mini log, or then in BoneLab on the OB6 and the Prophet 6. Everything is played in live and not quantized. And you got to think about that. It's like the difference between like Whitney Houston singing and somebody singing with auto-tune. So like, but like this plant has like multiple shades of green. You know, it's like here's like a lighter green and here's like a darker green, and if it was like a tree in the fall and it was like 40 different shades of orange, right? You can think about like every shade of orange is like a different shade of the note C, right? And so if you're Freddie Mercury and you can actually sing like a god, and you know, and you hit this C and it's a little bit sharp or a little bit flat, like 3 cents sharp or flat or whatever, but you're Freddie, and that's like a cooler shade of orange for this moment that we're in, and then you auto-tune it and now you're at 0, and you're at the same 0 that everybody else who's ever been auto-tuned has ever sang at, right? So it's like if you're in Photoshop and you're like XY is this value of orange, and now you're at the exact same orange that anyone that's ever been auto-tuned has singed at. You're removing the potential, the possibility of a different shade of orange. If you're at 120 BPM and you have like quarter notes, and you quantize it, the rhythm is going to be identical to every other thing that's ever been quantized. But if I play it in and I'm like a real piano player, so I can be a little ahead, a little behind in a controlled way that's actually more effective, then like that's subconsciously affecting the way you perceive the thing. And so like all of those little imperfections, but what we say is imperfection is just personality, are contributing to the outcome. And so I think so many things are being stripped of their personality because of the choices people are making. And so that, I think, is a great way to be memorable and effective, is actually to not do the thing everyone's doing and to give it more personality, you know. And so I think that's a great way to be effective, is to lean into the human aspect of stuff, and then only you can do the thing. The ocarina limited me, like I said, mainly because I'm not very good at it. I guess I could have hired somebody who was like a professional, and it's like I can also play guitar-ish, but like Jonathan's way better than me. Like way, Jonathan's a real guitar player. I'm not a real guitar player. You know, like there's a guitar part in BoneLab in Fight the Wind that is me playing guitar, but that's not a hard guitar part. You know, if my skills are good enough for what needs to happen, then I'm totally fine with it. And I felt like with the ocarina on Pick It Up, like I felt like, you know, it didn't need to be like virtuosic. I just wanted it to be like very poppy and very simple and catchy. Sometimes I feel like the limitations are a good thing, and that is like counterintuitively like one thing about, not to sound like the world's biggest egomaniac, but like I've been playing piano for like 27 years now, you know? And so it's like I know how to play the piano. And sometimes I feel like that is a gift, and sometimes I feel like it's a curse, because like I will, on the piano specifically, if things aren't a level of complicated, not that I'm like, oh, complicated is good, but like, you know, if I'm not like being Michael about it on the piano, I feel like I'm not doing enough. Whereas like if I like, you know, take out the ocarina and I play Mary Had a Little Lamb, I'm like, yes, I'm so good.
I'd like to thank NameBeSam for this next question. In his video, The Ultimate Boneworks Retrospective, he talks about how warmer synths are slowly switched out for colder ones. How true is this? And did you think of doing this when creating songs for the demo?
If it's true, it very well may be. I've actually never thought about that. If it's true, then the reason would be because I'm not sure at first I knew exactly where Boneworks was going, because I wrote because then again this goes to being in the early stages, because like if I remember correctly, like Ambient A is probably one of the first things that I wrote for Boneworks. Like it's probably one of the first ones, And so like when I went into the studio to like demo where they were at in like 2017 or something, it was literally just like a not very much different from that like GDC demo that everybody talks about. And there was just like a bunch of fog. The game was not fleshed out. As the game became more fleshed out, and then like, oh, we're getting like dark with this, oh, we're getting like this with this, then it's like, okay, let's make it more mysterious, let's make it, you know, more high stakes. Like it wasn't till like the third time that I played Boneworks as it was happening that they even had the crablet. And so I remember like the first time the crablet like jumping on my face, and Brandon didn't tell me about that. and you got to think like this is like 2017, so like, you know, this is like not, you know, nobody's experienced anything like this. And so Brandon's like, he like literally jump scared me. He's like, you know, go like walk over there. And I walk over there, and then this fucking crablet jumps on my face, and I start freaking out. Like, what the hell, dude? You know, it was like really scary. So if there's a reason for that, that would be the reason. Is by being on it so early, I'm discovering what's happening, and then as I'm discovering it, then we're kind of zoning in on the mood. I would say 95% of the songs, like I knew what the game was, but Ambient A definitely. And there was like one other one that I made before like I really knew what it was. Yeah, I have to look through the soundtrack. But there was like 2 songs I did before I really knew what the game was, and I just had played the demo, and so maybe that's what he's getting at. Other than that, as an explanation for that, well, the game like, you know, does start out kind of not like, you know, you start out like obviously the museum's the second level, but like, you know, kind of in a very happy, fun, quirky thing, and then it does get progressively darker, and the levels even get progressively darker. Like Streets is not a very dark level. If you go to a real museum, they're gonna have like, you know, it's not gonna be like, holy shit, like the zombies are coming to kill you. Like that's a really great thing about VR is the spatialized possibilities for some of the sound sources, you know. So like in the museum or you know, like pick it up coming from the radio versus just like it coming from, you know, the ether, and Ford's not hearing it, you're just hearing it as a player. Or like in Bone Lab, like in Mind Dive, you know, like how the main, like when you're on the cart, like the main music is coming from the speakers in the cart, but then when you go past that little western town, like we have the little banjo from Hoverjunkers.
Yeah.
You know, playing from the speaker in the rock. So the rest of the music is like in your cart, but then that little part is like, you know, out there in the environment, like it would be at Disneyland or something. And so that's like a really great thing that's unique about VR is that you can way more effectively like spatialize diegetic sound sources like you're talking about. That's an idea that I had, and I don't know if we'll do this, but that is one idea that I had where like, what if for B-side there were 2 soundtracks, and you know, like the monomat, you know, where it has the headphones, like what if you as the player like have the choice where like you can like take the monomat headphones, put them on, and now you're listening to, you know, the second score, but the first score without the monomat is like the score you would expect, like you're talking about the non-diegetic. So what if there's like a diegetic option for every level and a non-diegetic option for every level, and how does that affect the gameplay experience? Now part of me is aware of that could be really cool, but that could also fuck everything up. Because how much of your love of like in Station, like where you go up the stairs, and then one of my plays, and then there's the rain.
Yep.
Like how much of your love of that moment is because the first time you experienced it, that's what happened, right? If like now what I'm saying is like, oh well, what if we do this thing where you could have had a completely different experience for your first time, and then the second time you played through it, that was your experience. Would that make it worse? It might have, or it might have made it better. I don't know. Like these are all like questions, because it's like, let's say you go to like a restaurant and it's like literally the best restaurant ever, and had you not gotten in a fight with your girlfriend, it would have been your favorite restaurant. But because the first time you went there, you got in a fight with your girlfriend, now that place is ruined for you forever. And had you gotten in a fight with her the second time you went there, you would have been like, oh well, I went here and I had a great time the first time. It was just, we just happened to get into a fight. The second time, now it's not ruined for me. You know what I'm saying? You're thinking about this diegetic, non-diegetic, like, it'd be like, you know, a Boneworks type song, and then like a, you know, a more diegetic, whatever the level calls for. But like I'm saying, that also has pros and cons, and these are like considerations that we would want to think about as like what is the most effective thing. I'm very, 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 very conscious of the fact that like musically, like if everyone says the music for Boneworks is perfect, if I change something, it's like the director's cut of Lord of the Rings or Star Wars versus the, and then everybody freaks out for the director's cut of Star Wars because he like this one little thing different. So that's like something to be very, very aware of in the creative process is just how every decision affects people's perception, and especially their first experience of something affects their perception of it forever. They're not like profoundly narratively pertinent. Like it's not going to help you understand something that's going to happen in the future. But it's just more like world building in kind of the universe we're in, right? Because it's like, you know, you're in like a simulation, and so if like certain people from outside the simulation are like trying to send you like coded messages, that could be like an effective way to do that because you know nobody's going to be looking for that, right? Like that's like a very specific process that you have to do, that like only people who know how to do that process to uncode the message are going to be able to uncode it. And so to me, yeah, it is just like a Easter egg for the purpose of world building. I think surrealism is definitely, like, we've never had like a company meeting about surrealism, but I definitely think like everybody at Stress Level Zero is like a David Lynch fan. So we all kind of have like similar influences, and for some reason surrealism seems to just organically happen in the stuff we do. Like Duck Season's like such a good example. That's such a weird game. That's like such a weird game. But I love it. I really do. And that's like, it's the kind of thing where it's like I like that we're making things that like would never get made by like the studio system. Like these decisions would not be allowed. It wouldn't happen. In Boneworks, like the Who Am I melody, na 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 na, like I literally timed that so it's the exact, there's like a level, it was the level they had me play for the demo. The length of the jump is like the exact thing, and so in my head it's like this melody is going to play as you're jumping off the thing, and as you're going down, it goes down. And na 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 na. And then so for back to the lab, it's the opposite. Up the stairs, da 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 da.
Yeah.
And so that's like a really, it's silly, but it's like a green plus green. You know, the music goes up, you go. And I feel like that, you know, can subconsciously make it more effective. The direction, which is like it's like a smooth brain thing, but it works.
Both of the games have really, really strong music. Like we have the end of Bone Lab, we have Don't Fence Me In, and it's like,
right.
It's a really, really good kind of cover version of that song.
Thank you.
I know.
Yeah, that was a fun one to do. I don't know if Brandon knew what he was getting himself into. You know, because he in like a good way, because like he was like, oh, we need like a cover of that, and then I had to like figure out the legal behind that, and it just kind of was a coincidence. It was very lucky that one of the guys I went to college with was the guy I needed to contact at the company to pay to get the rights to even do the cover. Which, yeah, had he not been my friend from college, like we probably wouldn't have got permission to do it.
You made one song that was never kind of released to the public, and that was the one ending song in Descent. And I know that there was like the there's been the public kind of video which is titled it Back
Right.
to Mythos. But I want to know just kind of what happened to that song, because it's one of my favorites, and I think it's a favorite of many.
No comment.
Oh.
I know something's going on there, man.
Oh.
I got conspiracies about that song. Next question.
Okay.
Like, I think that's one of the reasons why people are resonating with what we're doing, is because we're not afraid to take more risks than, you know, the other studios seem to be doing now, because everybody is, you know, just like everything's like creativity by committee and like business people making creative decisions, whereas like, you know, like everybody at Stress Level Zero is like a creative. You know, Alex is an animator, Brandon's a filmmaker, and everybody else has their creative background. You know, there's no business people at Stress Level Zero. I do like top 3 or top 4. I really love classic rock. I really love Motown music. I really love romantic symphonic music, and I really love electronic music. I guess those would be the 4: Motown, classic rock, electronic, and like romantic symphonic music. And I guess, you know, that probably comes across as very obvious given the music.
It's been a real pleasure talking to you and hearing about your
Experiences in composing and creating these soundtracks.
for we are ever grateful for.
No, thank you guys
It's
for having me.
it's been really great.
Watch Vertigo.
All right.
Okay. Love you guys too. See ya, man. Have a good day.
Thank you.
Bye.
Wow, what amazing answers from you, Michael. That was truly amazing. Me and Wigram were definitely sitting there like fanboys, eating it up amazingly. I'd like to thank you for watching this video, and I'd like to thank Michael Wyckoff for having me the chance to interview him. It was really great to have this opportunity. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Lava Gang member out.